let's have the conversation about Alisson Becker then, guys, because I think it's warranted. I saw a little bit on this yesterday. Of his last 15 shots now, he's conceded 9 of them. The XG saved isn't very pretty either. I think, you know, he's I think like -2 and a bit, which is unlike Alisson. He usually saves you massive numbers on that. He's below par. I thought it was very odd for the goal. Mark, I don't know if you agree. He doesn't really do anything. Like, he can't. Usually in Alisson on that one, you think maybe he gets out and narrows the angle. We've seen him do that 100 times. Maybe he tries to save it with his feet. In the end, the dive, there's no spring in it. I don't know if it's post-injury, but I noticed this again. The Ahmad goal against Man United was a little bit similar, where there was just no real, I don't know, zip in the spring or the movement out that we usually see from Alisson. Are you a little bit worried, concerned that he isn't looking at his best post this another long injury layoff? Like, yeah, I think you've got to be a little bit concerned.
Well, I think firstly that statistic is surprising really, because you associate him being so sort of imperious in goal. But, you know, for that one, he probably is sort of slightly disappointed. It's a good finish from Chris Wood, you know, slots it in with his weaker foot, but you would hope that Alisson could do more. But when he first came back, against Girona, he had a really good game that night, and obviously there was question marks. Would Kelleher, you know, remain in the team? He'd been in excellent form, and if it wasn't for that mistake against Newcastle, you know, he may well have done. But, you know, Arne Slot showed the decisiveness to have a clear number one. But I'm not particularly concerned, really. I think it's sort of just, you know, sort of circumstance that we have conceded, you know, a fair few goals recently. The Diallo one, yeah, it's disappointing. There's not, you know, a particular amount of pace on the ball, but then you could argue that the cross should be stopped in the first place. Robertson should put more pressure on. So I think it's just one of those things. Not particularly worried, but I think looking forward further, you know, will he be at the club next season? Is a question to be had. What does the future look like for Kelleher? You know, Managerial coming in. I think there's certainly, you know, questions to be asked about the goalkeeping position.
I suppose as well, Lou, like, I saw what like when you look at how, I don't know what the word is, active or on his toes Sells was in that second half for them. You know, the one when he sprints out at Jota, the one when he gets down to Gakpo's effort. You know, he has a really good game second half there, goalkeeper. I'm just used to Alisson not doing that what he did. Yeah. I always think sometimes when that goal goes in against other goalies, I always used to think Alisson doesn't dive there. Alisson either gets out and stays big, or he goes with his feet, because it's unless you can, when you're on your line, you can't go up and down. There's no movement forward. Usually, we're used to seeing Alisson's first movement is forward. It's what Liverpool's goalies are taught, and then they go. It just felt a little bit limp. And again, I might be. I am not a goalkeeping expert. It just looks different than what we usually see from Alisson, which is why I'm wondering: is it to do with the injuries? Is he rusty? Has he not got that in his legs anymore? Yeah. And it's very rare to say goalies' legs have gone, but I don't know. But it just looks different than what we're used to seeing from our goalkeeper, which is why I'm bringing the question up.
No, I completely agree. Alisson's biggest strength is his size. You know, he's one of the biggest bastards in goal. And he spreads himself really well. He puts pressure on. And we've seen it this season where teams are through one-on-one or in a sort of 1v1 situation with Alisson, the only other player there, and he stops it. I think he saw it against Tottenham, actually, in the Carabao Cup. He's so good at doing it. I think you're right. I think it is a mixture of the injuries, because most of his injuries tend to be like hamstring or thigh injuries, things on his legs. He just can't seem to drop as quick. And again, it might be daft, but for someone that size, that weight, you probably aren't going to be able to drop as quick as you want to be. You're probably not as nimble as you need to be. His biggest strength is his size. That's why he can make himself look big. That's why he's so good in the air. That's why he's so good at charging off the box at people, sort of throw them off. His actual dropping and shot stopping is a bit poorer, and I think that's something that's just going to naturally decline as he gets older. It's not something that experienced goalkeepers are well renowned for. I think positionally they develop a bit better, but he's just, I don't know. It's not something I'm overly concerned about, but I think you're absolutely right. Like, he might not be here next summer, and Mamadashvili might be looking at this and thinking, I can do that. If I can prove that, then maybe Alisson isn't the starter next season. We don't know. And it might be jumping the gun, but he does. I'm not overly worried, but it is something that I don't see really changing as we go forward.
Like I say, I think he's still very good. He's still very good. And he's playing really well. And maybe it's just on us, Lou, that we're expecting too much. But I think I've seen Alisson save that before, kind of thing. Yeah. And I've seen him do it in a different way. I don't know. It's just it's a really good finish. And I think to blame him for that goal is wrong, because Liverpool's defending's poor. There's Salah misses the challenge in midfield. The midfield itself is gone. Van Dijk's way deeper. It's a bit of a mess, and Chris Wood takes it early and often, and quickly rather. Again, maybe I'm just, I don't know. When you're used to seeing Superman and then all of a sudden there's one fight that Superman doesn't win. You're like, oh my God, that's kind of what's been with Alisson.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just used to him making the real difficult stuff look relatively easy, and at this moment, it's not that. He's just playing like a good goalie, but not like the elite level goalie that we're used to him seeing. Would you agree with that?
No, yeah, I completely agree. Alisson has set the standards so high.
Yeah,
He's one of the greatest goalkeepers in Premier League history. People argue the best. Like, when you've set the standard that high for so many years, the minute you dip off ever so slightly, people go, oh, he's lost it, he's gone awful. But you can't maintain that same standard forever. Look at us this season, just as an example. We set the standard so high to begin with for that first half of the season. We've dipped a little bit, not to a level which people would expect us to be, how do I phrase it? This is probably a normal level now, but we set the standard so high that everyone thinks, oh, bloody hell, they're coming off it. It's the same for Alisson. He's been one of the most imperious and best goalkeepers of the past 30 years. Now that he has started to decline, he is in his 30s, he has had consistent injuries, he's dipping to a level which maybe you'd expect of someone in those circumstances. So, as I say, I'm not worried, but I don't think that he's going to excel back to that height that he has in the past.
And what it means, Mark, I suppose, is that Liverpool, actually, even yesterday, they don't actually concede too many chances, but every game a team gets a big chance against us. Like, that's just, and that happens to most teams, don't get me wrong. We're just used to having Superman in goal, who that one big chance is saved. Again, I don't know if he absolutely could do better yesterday, but I think the question is, it just didn't look, the athleticism just didn't look quite there at the moment. I don't know.
I think it's a difficult one too, because Forest didn't really have many other sort of big chances after that. So, we're judging on this one. Say he makes a big save, say we'd scored again and he makes a save late on to preserve the 3 points. We're having a very different conversation, really. So I think it's difficult. That goal, just one that happens, really sort of comes a bit out of nowhere. But I'm sure we'll move on to it. We responded very well, and we kept playing as we were before the goal, kept moving forward, trying to create chances. So
yeah, like I say, I don't think I'm saying Alisson's fault that goal, because I think it could be stopped before the source. Maybe my expectations of that guy are just so high, and if he's, it's worth mentioning. Like, I think I'm not saying as well. Like 6 of the last 8 clean sheets came with Quavine Keller in goal, and that might just be. It might be coincidence. It might be the opposition you've played. It might be whatever. But it's again. And listen, he has a bit of a stinker at Newcastle, where he's culpable at the end for that goal. So nobody's perfect, but. It might be the first time ever where I've seen, again, and maybe this is just social media, and maybe I'm online too much and I need to get off it. It's the first time I'm seeing questions asked about Alisson. You've never seen this. It's been since day one. He's great. Like, he first got here, and it was like, maybe he got a bit too cocky and he's trying to do Cruyff turns and stuff, and then he cut that out of his game, and then he's just been the best goalie in the world, I think, or one of the best goalies in the world for a long time. It's actually the first real time we've seen anyone having a go at him, and he's had a lot of injuries, and last time he's come back from injury, he's been pretty good on it straight away. It might just be a long lasting thing, but it's a strange world we're at the moment, where we're having conversation about the goalie, because usually it's never even a conversation when it's Alisson. We just go, Alisson played well, and you move on, or Alisson was the best player, and we're not really talking about that now.
No, but you look at anyone who's been in this team for, like, the Klopp era, for example, and they've had patches where everyone's gone, they're off it. Salah's done it. Robbo's doing it now. Trent's had it. Van Dijk's had it. Everyone in that team has had a moment where they've dipped, and everyone's sort of, the narrative has turned from the ever reliable world-class best player in that position to, are they really good enough? Do they need to be here? And I think this is just Alisson dipping through that. But like we've said, we just expect such high standards from him that when he does dip ever so slightly, it's like the world's ending. And I think people are very reactive to, like, goalkeepers in particular, because if they make a mistake, or if something isn't quite up to scratch, because you can see the goal. I don't think Alisson's too at fault for it. He probably could have dropped a bit quicker, but like I said before, he's getting a lot of injuries, even for a goalkeeper, like, not just for a goalkeeper, for a player. It's a lot of injuries. He's in his 30s now. He's been playing at the top level for years, and I know goalkeepers can do it for longer, but he's been throwing himself around for years now. He might just be getting to that point where his body can't do what his head wants to do. He might be having that sort of crisis of, I can't do what I want. And this is maybe why Liverpool have strengthened the goalkeeper area as a first sign and under slot. Maybe that's the whole reason for this. And like I said, I don't think Alisson's going to decline now and he's going to completely dip, because you look at the opposition we've played, that probably explains a lot of it. But I don't see him getting back to that imperious best.
Well, I say they signed this new one for a reason. Mark, as well. I think maybe they've seen something. again, they signed Mamardashvili for a reason, and he's going to play at some point. You don't sign a goalie for 30 odd million quid now, who's playing every week for his team, unless he's probably got some assurances of down the line he's going to be in the team somewhere. So whether that's next year, the year after, or whatever, I wonder if Liverpool have seen something in the numbers, maybe definitely the injuries, where they've gone, it's probably the time. Now, they did this with a few players where you didn't quite realise, because he was still performing quite well, but maybe there was a dip coming, and actually players have left Liverpool on frees and have done fuck all. So, and you maybe in hindsight, maybe they'd seen something coming. Do you think maybe that is the case with Mamardashvili? Not to go over the whole why have we signed him thing, but in recent weeks, again, Alisson got that massive injury at Palace, which might play into it, but I'm always thinking it'd be really, really difficult for someone to get in this team and be ahead of this guy at this moment. Right now, you could say there might be a possibility of it happening if he continues in this form, which is good, but not the elite world-class goalie that he's been. Is that fair to say?
I think the club are definitely seen potential drop off in Alisson. I mean, there's a obvious conversation about the 3 contracts, and a while back I would have added Alisson to that conversation, whereas it won't feel a massive blow necessarily now if he does leave. I think his contract ends in 2027, so he's got a bit more time. But that's sort of less of a concern now, really. I think you've also got to look at the form of Kelleher as well. Where his future lies, we don't know. But I think he's the best number 2 in the world. I don't think that's hyperbole to say. He saved a penalty at Anfield against Kylian Mbappe this season. He's laid his credentials out. Clean sheets against City. You couldn't really fault him until that error at Newcastle, and it's like the brutal world that Alisson comes straight back in. But obviously, the Valencia goalkeeper, that save he made that went viral on social media, everyone sort of in awe of him. But I'd still have a look at Kelleher. Really, could be a world where he's the number 1 and the new goalkeeper coming in's the number 2, and he sort of has to earn it. But
yeah, it's the first time. Yeah, like Alisson might have a bit of, again. I am not saying Alisson's shite or he's crap or he's fell off a cliff. I just think maybe his standards have dropped 10%. And that can be the difference sometimes. We're used to him being absolute put your cape on and be Superman, and maybe he's just been a little bit like Clark Kent at the moment, which is sound, but maybe it could be a bit better. But again, let us know your thoughts, guys. Comment section below if you're listening to this on the podcast. Feel free to get in touch with us on social media. Tell us who you think's right, what you think's wrong, what would you do with Alisson going forwards, and all that good stuff.